Hello, and welcome back to Kathy Houchins Stories. I'm Kathy Houchins, and I'm delighted that you're here with me today. This is episode 6, Sisterhood, Evie's Revelations. It's actually book 4 in the series. This is a story of Evie, the pillar of honesty, whose gift of sight revealed secrets that would change everything. Evie's journey will show you that sometimes the hardest truths are the ones we most need to hear. What would you do if your vision showed you a truth that no one else would believe or that they could see? Evie Tack. Now, she's the real estate broker in Hams Bayou, the woman with a heart for stray animals and lost souls. She was born to be the pillar of honesty. Evie could see what others couldn't, not just the future, but the truth hidden in the past. Evie possessed something very unique. She could rewind time itself, watching events unfold backwards to discover what really happened. And this gift was about to play a significant role and was about to descend onto Hams Bayou. Now, Evie has visions, as you know, that's her gift. And one afternoon, she was sitting in her office and fell into a trance-like state that took her to a vision where she was introduced to the 4 grave sites, and then onto what appears to be Hams Bayou in the 17th century. She instantly knew these people were the original protectors of the area. They had been asked to safeguard it from evil and dark forces. She also saw that blue light that she had vividly seen in her visions hovering protectively over these protectors. She woke up and gathered her sisters and told them about her vision. Armed with this information from Evie's vision, they knew they needed more info, so they started doing their research. And they found out that, number one, there had been a fund established to rebuild the mansion if there was ever an emergency, which had there never been. So there was enough money in that fund to rebuild Hams Bayou completely. So they knew they had that in reserves. And they also discovered in their search that they had discovered a hidden entrance to the grave sites and planned to go down in there, but if they could find, mainly to find any clues or any information that would help them. They distracted the guards one night and managed to slip down in and walked around and got acclimated to the grave sites underneath the ground there. And they found some artifacts and an old book. They found a compass that pointed only to dangers, interesting, an amulet that healed, an hourglass that manipulated time, and a scrying mirror that seemed to be drawn towards Bella. It's a very old ritual book. Now, a scrying mirror is a magical mirror that reveals visions of the future and glimpses of other realms. They carried all these artifacts with them back to their safe room. They pulled the ritual book out one day and were reviewing and practicing some of the rituals in there, and they were tired and were just resting and sitting there, and the book was sitting on this little altar that's kind of in their safe room, and the book just flew open and the pages just started flying all over, and it landed quietly open to a particular chapter. And the title of that chapter was named The Dark Ambitions of Mr. Delgado. So the prophecy was pretty clear. Delgado sought to harness the mystical energies of those grave sites. If he succeeded, he would gain the power to control minds, manipulate time, and shape reality itself. And the sisters, they were the 4 protectors the prophecy spoke of, the only ones that could stop him. So there's another mystery getting ready to happen here. Now, Evie one day was sitting in her real estate office and was drawn to the list of the new listings in the area. And she decides, this one particular structure, she decides to go take a look at. It's a very old mansion that had not been occupied for quite some time. She went out there, she entered the building, brushing away cobwebs and trying to see what the place was like. And there was like this massive, at one time probably very grandeur staircase. And anyway, she decided she wanted to look at it a little closer. She finds this door and it goes down some steps, so she goes down into the basement. When she's down in there, she starts looking around, and I'm going to read you from Evie's book here what happens. While digging through one of the boxes, Evie found several old journals and artifacts belonging to the original protectors. In one of those boxes, she recognized the names from her vision. One journal detailed rituals and spells used to safeguard the community. Evie leaned against the wall and fell into a vision that intensified, showing her scenes from the mansion's past. She saw the protectors gathered there using the mansion as their headquarters. They perform rites to strengthen their powers and protect the land from evil. Well, what you can see is Evie realized the strength of the significance of that mansion and how important it was. So she gathered her sisters together and they met at the safe room, and she brought them up to speed with all she had seen and the vision she had that afternoon. She showed them the additional artifacts and the ritual book as well. The sisters decided to purchase that property to keep it out of Delgado's hands. The mansion was to serve as their new base of operations and a place to train and plan their next moves. The sisters made a cash offer, and within a week, they were the proud owners of that historical mansion. However, it's going to take some work. And so they decided on some contractors and to people come out, and Evie was kind of in charge of that. So Evie met a contractor out there one day, and went over everything with him, and he was leaving to get a quote back to her. When she was getting ready to lock everything up and leave, there was a stranger standing at the base of the massive stairwell. And he says, "Hello, my name is Gabriel." And Gabriel is now introduced to the sisters. Gabriel had been studying that mansion and the supernatural history that goes along with it. And he had with him a journal from Margaret, one of the original protectors from the 1700s. After meeting with the sisters, they all agreed to work together to discover what each one knew and see if they can make it work a little bit better. The mansion had many cubby holes with secrets scattered throughout the basement and even in the old library room. Books, diagrams, artifacts were discovered everywhere, left by the original protectors. So Gabriel became a crucial ally in their fight against Delgado, as he brought historical knowledge and strategical planning with him. So Evie has another vision, and I want to kind of tell you about this. Remember Eleanor's husband, Blaine, who had died in a plane crash? The official reports were clear. The investigation was closed. Everyone had moved on except Evie. Her visions kept pulling her back to that crash site, showing her fragments that didn't make sense, something was wrong, and she could feel it. One afternoon while at the mansion, Evie slipped into a most vivid vision that she'd ever experienced. Oh, let me read you just a little bit about that real quick. As she rewound the events, Evie noted the presence of another stranger, someone who had managed to survive the crash. The identity of this person and their whereabouts remained elusive, hidden in the chaotic aftermath. However, Evie remained persistent in her investigation. The rain blurred most of what she could see. However, she eventually pieced together enough clues to semi-track the survivors' movement post the crash. Her discovery raised some questions more questions than answers. Why had this person not come forward? What were they hiding? And most importantly, how were they connected to Blaine's fate? The revelation of a survivor hinted at a larger conspiracy, one that threatened to unravel the fragile peace of Hamp's Bayou. When Evie jolted awake, her scream echoed through the mansion. She gathered her sisters and told them what her vision was, and the room fell silent. As you could imagine, Eleanor's face went pale. "What? It can't be. Are you sure? A survivor? Who?" And then there was the burden of the pillar of honesty. Sometimes you see truths that sound impossible, truths that no one else wants to believe. But Evie's visions were never wrong. She had seen something in that forest, something the official reports had missed, and if there was ever even a small chance, the sisters faced an agonizing decision. Do they trust Evie's vision and embark what could be a futile search, or do they accept the painful reality that everyone had already accepted? Eleanor's heart was breaking all over again, torn between hope and the fear of having that hope destroyed. Well, the sisters made their choice. They would follow Evie's vision no matter where it led. They took off up north and left Gabriel in charge. Together, they all flew up north, rented a Jeep, and headed deep into Superior National Forest, following nothing but Evie's vision like a map into the unknown. The trek was treacherous, dense foliage, rough terrain, and the crushing fear of hope and the weight of hope and fear. And then they saw the cabin. What happened next in the remote forest would change everything. And if you'd like, you have to read the book to discover what they found. I just can't tell you what that is now. It's very important. Now, let's switch places. Let's go to Spain. We're over in Spain now, and Delgado wasn't playing fair anymore. The sisters had stopped him at every move so far. So he contacted his cousin Esmeralda. She was a powerful sorceress. He wanted to learn more about dark magic from her, and the price to pay would be pieces of his soul. Esmeralda had a warning. Let me read you that warning. And she says here, the use of dark magic takes a toll on your body and mind, causing physical degradation and mental instability over time. You will begin to show signs of premature aging with your hair graying and your body weakening. Your mind will become increasingly paranoid and unstable, making you both dangerous and unpredictable. You must guard against madness. Delgado acknowledges what his cousin told him, and he went on and continued to learn a few more things from her. And then he decided to go back to Hamps Bayou. So he returns to Biloxi, does a few things there, and then grabs only a couple people knew he was back, and he grabs them and he heads back to Hamps Bayou. There, he begins practicing some of the black magic he'd learned from Esmeralda. He placed a curse on Hamps Bayou's water supply. He summoned malevolent spirits. He brought relentless storms that destroyed crops and homes. Every attack weakened the town, but every spell darkened his heart. But Evie's vision saw it all coming. When they came back from their search up north, they began heavy training as Evie was getting many visions of Delgado's plans. And this time, the sisters were ready. The sisters spent weeks preparing for the confrontation they knew was coming. Their special skills were dramatically enriched and strengthened as they rehearsed special rituals and spells. Evie's visions grew clearer and more detailed. She could see not just what would happen, but how to prevent it. Gabriel stood by their side, his own sensitivity to mystical energies making him an invaluable ally. They practiced, they trained, they strengthened the wards. The wards are mystical barriers that are created through rituals, and think of them as invisible forces that shield protected areas from dark magic. They wanted to protect those grave sites, and when a ritual under a new moon, their powers emerged into one unified force beyond even what they could imagine. The confrontation was almost at hand, no time to waste. Another evening, the sisters were at the grave sites, fortifying those wards again to make sure they were protected, when who appears? Delgado decides to show up at the grave sites. Let me read to you what happens there. Delgado appeared, flanked by his men. "Ladies," he said smoothly, "I couldn't help but notice you here. Do you frequent these grave sites often? They must be very important to you." Evie stepped forward, her voice steady. "They are, and they are protected. You should leave." Delgado chuckled, a dark edge to his laughter. "Oh, I don't think so. You see, I've made it my mission to acquire whatever it is you're hiding here, and I always get what I want." Luna's eyes flashed with anger. "These graves are not for sale. They hold power and history that you cannot begin to understand." "Power, you say?" Delgado's eyes gleamed with greed. then I definitely want them. You see, whatever you value, I will take. Consider it a game. I don't play fair. The stage was set. A battle would begin soon to take over the grave sites, and the sisters had to begin their preparation. All right, a few nights later, on the night of the full moon, Delgado implements his plan. Without giving too much away, Delgado's group split up. His men and a surprise reporter were at the grave sites along with some construction equipment, ready to tear those grave sites apart. Delgado and his henchmen were actually at the old cemetery, and so he's about to perform some black magic there. The sisters took a stand. They were at the cemetery, and Gabriel was at the grave sites. The battle ensues, and you need to read the book to find out what happens there. So the price of honesty. As the police and federal agents arrived to arrest Delgado and his men, obviously the sisters won. The sisters stood together victorious but exhausted. Evie's honesty, her refusal to accept easy lies, her commitment to revealing difficult truths, and with her sisters, they had saved the entire town. Pillar of Honesty had shown them all that truth, no matter how hard to see or speak, is the foundation of everything good. So let me tell you, there's an epilogue to this book. So it's about 3 years later, after the defeat of Delgado, and Ham's Bayou was thriving. Delgado and David were in prison, hopefully for good. Eleanor's sisters had protected Ham's Bayou. Life was moving on. The sisters maintained their vigilance and were happy that they were there to protect the land they loved. The mansion became a center of hope. The grave sites remained sacred and protected, and everyone, as the sisters performed a strengthening ritual, the blue light and Dacier appeared with a message. I want to read you that real quick here. It says that Dacier continued, "Your actions in this realm have not gone unnoticed. They will propel you to another higher vibrational realm where everything you ever wanted will be granted to you. This is well-deserved and honored." The prophecy was fulfilled. The sisters had prevailed. So now, in closing, let's just say that Evie's revelation teaches us that honesty isn't just about telling the truth. It's about seeing the truth, even when it's hidden, even when it's painful, even when no one else believes you. It's about trusting your vision and having the courage to act on what you know is real. Evie saw the artifacts when they were buried and forgotten. She saw the darkness in Delgado when he hid behind respectability. And because she refused to look away from the truth, she saved everyone she loved. But the story isn't over. Truth isn't always easy to see, but it's always worth seeking. And speaking of truth, join me next time for the unveiling of truths. This is where we'll answer many of the questions you have from previous books. Remember, all 5 books in the Sisterhood Chronicle are available now, including the completed hardcover collection. It's you can get that at the Lulu, and this is the paperback version of it. It's pretty thick, but it's all 5 books are in there, one right after another. And so I'm Kathy Houchins, and until next time, remember, the hardest visions to share are often the most important. Looking forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye.